I guess hemp and tobacco were probably the two biggest crops here in the United States, you know, at the founding of the country.
Well, actually, I think tobacco came later. Tobacco was adopted from the Native Americans that were here, and cannabis was something that was brought with the sailors. And, you know, the sailing ships at the time, 80% of the ship was actually hemp. You know, the sails of the ship were hemp. The pitch that they used to seal the boards to make the ship float was made from hemp and things like that. So obviously, you know, the first thing that a colony would need to do to establish security in a new area would be to establish a healthy hemp crop to supply, you know, the needs of the society. But, you know, as you said, you know, the founding fathers, it was actually required by law to grow hemp in the original 13 colonies. I think it was Jamestown in the 1600s passed a law requiring all farmers to grow hemp. Thomas Jefferson said that hemp was necessary for defense of the nation. I believe it was him that said that. He definitely had numerous quotes about hemp. Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, and Ben Franklin were all hemp farmers. And in fact, Ben Franklin opened our country's first paper mill and our first printing press with the use of hemp paper. And back then, what they would do is use the old sails and ropes from the ships to make what was called rag paper. And rag paper was used for the drafting of the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. Constitution later ended up on lambskin for the final copy, but it was definitely drafted on hemp. And you know, hemp was legal tender to pay your taxes with, I believe, until 1865 in this country. But it was commonly used for trade and you know, many other things as well.
Well, the one question that has to be asked, and I'm sure anybody listening at this point is thinking, wait a minute, were our founding fathers smoking dope? I mean, I don't know any better way to ask it. But were they smoking marijuana?
Well, marijuana use at that time was a lot less common. There is record in George Washington's diary that he would grow Indian hemp, and he and I believe it was either Thomas Jefferson or Ben Franklin would actually have competitions between each other to see who could grow the best, what we call today marijuana. But what you have to realize is that at that time, you know, marijuana or cannabis hemp was not stigmatized at all. It had been used in medicines and food and fuel and everything for thousands of years, and it was just, you know, it was considered a common staple, you know, and in fact, hemp seed is actually one of the most nutritious food sources known to humankind. It's 65% protein, and it's got the highest level of essential fatty acids, gamma-linolenic and gamma-linoleic essential fatty acids of just about any other food source. I think the avocado may come close to hemp seed in its nutritional value, but you know, the hemp seed oil was used for all of these various things. So, you know, if we take into account how widespread it was for medicinal use, and I think marijuana up until 1890 was one of the top 3 prescribed medications next to morphine or opium and alcohol. And then I think in 1890 was when aspirin was invented and began to edge marijuana out. But it was still recommended for about 100 different ailments known at the time, everything from gout to menstrual cramps and migraines and asthma and all kinds of things. Put it in that context, it doesn't, you know, it's not so astounding to know that our founding fathers used cannabis.
And then and I would imagine late in the 19th century, a person wanting this would just go into a pharmacy and ask for some. The pharmacist would basically grind it up right there for them and put it in a little box or a package, and off they went.
Well, actually, up until that point, it was more common that extracts were used of cannabis, and it was far more common that the Indian hemp or cannabis indica, as opposed to cannabis sativa, was used for that. And cannabis indica obviously is from India, and it's a slightly stronger strain. Looking at the preparational usage, it was primarily prescribed in other medications. I think 20% of all medications at the time, up until about either 1910 or 1920, were made from cannabis. And even today, there are doctors and professors who argue that cannabis could replace anywhere from 10 to 40% of all medicines in use today.
And from what I understand, the cannabis doesn't have the type of side effects that a number of the other drugs that we use today have.
Right. You know, like now there's a drug that's used for asthmatics that is known to have phenylamine or something like that is known to have very serious side effects in some people, and cannabis has been proven effective for asthmatics in 80% of users, and cannabis has been proven effective in the treatment of glaucoma far better than most other medications. It's been used as they've created antibiotics and analgesics from it, and all sorts of things from the plant. But what happened was in 1917, hemp was really on the way out from 1865 on because of the invention of the cotton gin, and prior to 1865, unfortunately, the production of cannabis was done with slave labor.
Right.
And what we're not told in our history books is that the majority of the plantations in the South were actually hemp plantations, not cotton plantations. Cotton plantations made up a fraction. Over 8,000 of the major plantations in the South were hemp plantations. And with the end of slavery, hemp was on a major decline. And then in 1917, a guy, George, I believe his last name was Slitchin, or something similar, invented and patented a machine called the decorticating machine that basically took the labor to produce an acre of raw hemp material, which with man labor took about 200 to 300 hours an acre, and turned it down to 2 or 3 hours for an acre. And it was poised to revolutionize the newspaper industry and various other industries. And William Randolph Hearst Newspaper Company, his largest competitor, was the one who had put a lot of the money into the production of this decorticating machine. And before the decorticating machine was completed, the threat of paper pulp prices, there was a threat that the prices were going to double. So I don't remember the man who funded Mr. Slitchin's research on the decorticator, but he basically got frightened and pulled out of the research. And then the decorticator didn't reappear again until 1936. And when Popular Mechanics and another magazine ran an article basically stating that marijuana was the new billion-dollar crop, and that this decorticating machine was going to revolutionize everything from paper to textiles to thousands of other uses. And today, we now know that industrial hemp can be used for over 50,000 different products, ranging from fine laces and lingerie to heavy jeans. In fact, original Levi's were made from industrial hemp, to books and Bibles and soaps and foods, and the list of products that can be made from it is just amazing. In fact, like I mentioned earlier, the production of the isochanvre, the hemp homes in France, you could actually, except for steel and glass windows, an entire home could be made from industrial hemp. And in fact, Bill Conde, who owns a lumber company up in Oregon, back in the 90s working with Washington State University, proved that they could make building material and beams and boards and everything with hemp herds and hemp natural glues that are in the plant that was far stronger than timber for building material.
Wow.
And then even the pipes, like the PVC piping and things like that, have been shown to be easily made from cellulose plastics. You can think of your computer that you're on right now. All the plastic parts for the computer could be made with hemp, and so the list of things that it can be used for goes on.